Are you thinking about buying a slice of paradise here in Albania? I hear you, but listen, the system is different and you need to know how it works so you don't lose your money. Today we're going to talk about the history of the real estate market in Albania, what you need to know, and ultimately how you can protect yourself from getting scammed. So please stay until the end. Before we get started, please subscribe. We left the USA and moved to Albania over a year and a half ago now, and it's been a wild ride that we are very happy to share with you multiple times a week here on YouTube. So let's get started. First, I think it's important to talk about a little bit of the history of real estate in Albania, because a lot of people don't realize this. During communism, people generally didn't own real estate. The state owned all of the property. So when communism came to power in the mid-1940s, land was seized from property owners, and the state took it. And then during communism, housing was done through allocation systems. You were assigned a house. You were assigned a place to live, and this created a whole lot of problems. Ultimately, when communism fell in the early 1990s, there was kind of a mess because there was a redistribution of property. Property was not necessarily returned to the people that it was taken from. It was distributed to new people. So stop and think about this for a second. That creates all kinds of chaos. In the US, we're used to title insurance and clear titles that go back until a property was built even 100, 150 years ago. That is not the case in Albania. And that has led to blood feuds, court disputes that lasted decades, more chaos than you can imagine. It's different, and you need to show up and be aware of how the system works. So you get a good deal and you get a solid property that you're happy with for years to come. Okay, so let's talk about how the market works in more detail. Back home, you may be used to something like the MLS. We have that in the United States, the multiple listing service. You can find basically any property you want, anytime you want, online. That's not a thing in Albania. Real estate is not centralized. There's not one database that you can go list your property on or find properties available. You have to rely on realtors, and those realtors work from books of business. So there are a lot of silos in the market. Your realtor is not likely to show you a property that they don't already have in their portfolio to sell. It's just not a thing. I'm not saying you can't find a realtor that won't help you in this case, but generally speaking, you need to work with multiple realtors to find a good selection of properties that meet your needs. There is more legwork for you to do than you would expect coming from maybe your home country, where you go hire a realtor and really they take care of everything until you make the selection on the property that you want. They do all of the hunting. They go speak to other realtors. They do the networking. Again, that's not really how it works here. So you've got to hustle a little bit. You've really got to make sure that you are seeing all of the inventory available. Ultimately, that's on you. There are some tools that can make this easier. There are obviously properties listed online. The major real estate firms, Century 21, Remax, they have websites, they list properties, but again, they're just the properties that they sell. You can also find property on Facebook groups for real estate, or Mariep, a local sort of Craigslist type site. So you've got to do a little more hustling if you really want to find the best property that you can. And that generally starts with finding a realtor. So let's talk about how to do that, what the best approaches are and what the pros and cons can be. First, I would tell you, take sort of a shotgun approach. Interview multiple realtors, talk to many people, get a feel for these people, get an understanding of the portfolio of properties that they represent, and make sure that you get a good vibe. This is something that I would highly recommend you take referrals or recommendations for. But again, keep in mind that everybody generally has some sort of motive. Either they want to help their friend, maybe they're making something on the deal. So talk to a few people, get references, check those references, and then proceed with your realtor. A lot of people come to us and ask us for one realtor that they can work with. And I can't reiterate enough, that's not a great strategy in Albania. You need to diversify the realtors that you're working with to find the property that you really want. This is very important. Look, it's more work, but because it's a little more work, there's, some upside in the market that you don't find in other countries. So keep that in mind. You also need to think about whether you want to work with a big agency, Century 21, Remax. Those agencies often speak better English. They often have more templatized documents. They have things that seem to make the process easier, but you're going to pay a premium for that. And those agencies are not going to show you everything on the market because, like we said earlier, they can't. There's no MLS. So you may be missing a hidden gem if you just work with one of these big agencies. That's why the shotgun approach makes a lot of sense for most people. You speak with multiple realtors, you see multiple options, you understand the pricing in the market better, and ultimately you can make a better decision. A vibe check is really important. I talked about this a minute ago. I want to say it again. Make sure that you have a very good feeling with the realtor or realtors you choose to work with. Make sure they understand your needs and make sure that you feel like they have your best interests in mind. Realtors here, from our experience, they don't have the same level of patience maybe you would find in the US. They're not going to hold your hand forever. And if you reach out to them a year or two before you're ready to make a purchase, well, they're not going to be helpful at all. This is a very in-person thing. People show up in a city that they're interested in. They go find realtors. They meet them for coffee. They go into their offices. They speak with them. And they really get an understanding for who these people are that they're about to work with. That's the right way to do this. If you're just reaching out on WhatsApp, it could work, but you could miss a lot of important information or details or feelings about the person that you're about to work with. So keep that in mind. It's not that you can't start looking or shopping or preparing before you arrive in Albania, but it's just culturally not really the way it works. And keep in mind, real estate and the real estate profession is a fairly new thing in Albania. This kind of ties back to history a little bit, but remember, the real estate market is brand new since 1991 or so. During the 90s, people sort of, met up with each other and they bartered to buy a property. In the 2000s, things got a little more formalized, and today there is a network of realtors, there is a licensing and certification process, and it's important that you find people who have done this, who actually understand the law, and they understand how to sell you property. So one last bit on finding a realtor. You really have to pay attention to this vibe check that I keep talking about. You really need to do your due diligence. You need to make sure that they're actually a realtor, because there are a lot of people here who purport to be realtors. They present themselves as realtors, but guess what? They're not. I've met two in the last few months, two people who claim to be realtors. Both of them are American people who have recently come to Albania, and neither of them are licensed realtors. I didn't really know how this worked several months ago. And since meeting these people, I've gotten more curious, and what I've come to learn is this. There is a licensing process. You generally need to do the licensing and the testing in Albanian. So if someone tells you they're a realtor and they're not fluent in Albanian, I would really doubt that. Go to the website, the Albanian Association for Realtors, and look them up. If they're not there, run away. One of these Americans that I met, she has sold everything online, from taxi rides to apartments. She has asked people for money, like donations, to promote their restaurants. This lady is a grifter. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. And I speak to people every day who encounter somebody like this, a grifter, who they think they're working with, that's got their best interests in mind. They don't. They don't. I'm sorry to say that, but there are a lot of shady, usually Americans, that try to get one over on another American. I've seen a large number of Americans or foreigners who work in real estate. They kind of manage the social media. They do the front-facing work for maybe a legit Albanian real estate firm, but you're still getting sort of this middleman experience. You don't want that. You need a realtor who you can work with and feel 100% confident that they know what they're doing, that they understand the real estate market, they know the ins and outs, and they've got you in mind when they're helping you buy a property. So another call out that is important to make, the concept that we have in the US of a buyer's agent and a seller's agent doesn't really exist here. There's usually one agent who is negotiating for both sides, and they're collecting a commission for both sides or from both sides. So stop and think about that for a second. It is possible to do this in the US, to use one agent, but generally to do that, you need to sign some additional paperwork. It's not legal in every state. And this is the case because it's really hard to have both the seller's interest and the buyer's interest in mind. But this is default in Albania. So even if you really, really like your realtor, are they negotiating to get you the best price? That would hurt their commission. So is that good for you? Probably not. This is where I would tell you it's really important to hire or find an independent person that's got your back. Use an attorney. Use an Albanian attorney or real estate agent that you are paying a fixed fee to that is not actually managing the transaction on both parties' behalf. You need an independent arbiter that's got your back. And nobody in Albania is going to force you to have one. So this is on you. You need to make sure that you have somebody like this in your pocket. It's very easy to hire an attorney here. It's generally very affordable. So keep that in mind and make that plan when you start to shop for housing. All right, you found your realtor. You think you found the property that you like. Now what? What happens? You're going to leverage a notary in Albania to manage most of the transaction. The notary is the one with the escrow account. That's where your money goes in the purchase process. That's where your deposit goes, to a notary's escrow account. A lot of sellers and a lot of agents will try to navigate some deal where you give the seller some cash directly and you formalize the paperwork with the notary for a smaller amount, so it looks like you paid less than you did for the property. This is a bad idea. You have no protection when you do that. You're just handing over somebody $100,000, $200,000 in cash, potentially. Don't do that. You need to use the notary. But also remember that the notary in Albania, while they are an important service provider, if you will, they can make mistakes. They use oftentimes templatized contracts and language that you really need to be careful of. If you don't speak Albanian, you will need a translator present before you sign a notarized document. But the translator can be really good or really bad. I've heard stories of people who've used translators and they were very patient and they went through essentially word by word and translated every document ahead of time. And then they went over it with the customer. Or I've heard of stories, and I've personally experienced this, with translators in the notary's office that quickly skims a document, summarizes what it says, and then you're supposed to sign it. Sometimes that works out, and sometimes that creates a mess. A few months ago, I ran into someone who was trying to sell their property in Albania, and when they purchased it a decade previously, the notary had mistakenly listed them as married when they had never been married. Now, they have a paperwork problem and they can't sell the property until they get permission from their non-existent wife to sell. So all of this documentation is really, really critical. It's very hard to fix sometimes. You need someone on your team who is only focused on your interests, who is not in a hurry to get the transaction finished, to protect yourself. Keep that in mind. I want to summarize some of the challenges, scams, problems that we see or hear about that you need to be aware of. New builds. A lot of people are enticed by the idea of buying a property that's not yet finished. That can be really good. You can save some money, but you can also end up in a paperwork nightmare. In Albania, you need the certificate of title. It's called a hipotekë here. You need that to actually own the property. If it's being built, there is no hipotekë. So you are essentially putting money into the dream that it will get finished and you will get the hipotekë. Most people would advise you, especially as a foreigner in the country, to run away from this, because lots of things can happen. The builder runs out of money, well, you've got a problem. It doesn't matter how much money you've put into this. The builder runs off with your money, you don't have a whole lot of protections. You need to see the hipotekë when you're interested in buying the property. If the hipotekë doesn't exist, you need to proceed very, very cautiously. Make sure you have an attorney. Make sure you have protection at this point. I already talked about realtors, but I can't state this enough. Make sure your realtor is actually a realtor. I know that sounds silly, but look, it happens every day here. So you've really got to watch out for this, because some of these people can be very, very charming. They can be very helpful. They're going to go out of their way to get you the best deal ever. And look, guys, golden rule. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Another thing to keep in mind is agricultural land, farmland, can be more difficult for foreigners to buy. You sometimes have to use a company to do this. Sometimes you have to purchase through a company or a builder. There are restrictions on this, unlike urban housing, unlike an apartment or a house inside the city. If you're buying farmland, there are restrictions. This is another area where people will try and sell you a field that they can't technically sell you. You need to be cautious of this. It's not that you can't buy farmland, but there's a different process, there are different regulations, and somebody looking for a quick buck, well, they're going to convince you to buy their field. You've given them a bunch of cash, and then down the road you realize, oh, this isn't actually my property. Keep in mind that there have been property disputes going on in Albania for decades. Land was largely taken in the 1940s and 50s during the rise of communism, and all of the land became state-owned, state-controlled. It was redistributed to people, not given back, but redistributed at the fall of communism. So there are cases, I have met multiple people who have told me stories about, my family used to own the land that the Coca-Cola plant is on. We've been in court for decades. We've never been able to get this back. Another story, our incredible Albanian language teacher's family lost all of their land, like everyone else did, at the rise of communism. It was never returned, and she didn't feel like it was worth it to go through this multi-decade-long fight to try and get it back. So some people have just walked away from it. But these years-old disputes can pop back up. So this is why the hipotekë, the certificate of title, is so important in Albania. There's not a concept of title insurance the way there is in the United States. So you need to make sure that the title is clean and that the person selling you the property has the legal authority to do so. Most of this is on the notary to do. They process these checks generally, but this is an area where you want to be extra vigilant. I can't stress this enough. You need to be extra vigilant. I know someone who bought one of these new builds. They were promised a hipotekë. It would be done at a certain time. It's been months and months after that. The hipotekë's not ready yet because the entire property is not finished, and until the entire property is finished, apparently the hipotekës can't be issued. But this person bought this property with the intention of using it to apply for residency. They can't apply for residency, again, because they don't have the hypotekë to the property. And this wasn't a small purchase. This was mid-six figures, and it's been months and months, and the only recourse there is to be patient and hope it shows up. So don't get yourself in that position. A lot of people that we encounter, they want to find property, they want to buy property before they get here. I'm not saying there's never a case to do that, but I would generally tell you it's not a great idea. If you are going to do that, make sure you leverage people on the ground in Albania to help you. Find a friend, find a few friends, find someone that will go look at properties with you, that will also interview the real estate agent that you're interested in working with, or agents, if you must go down this path. But really, I think the best approach for anybody that's interested in investing in real estate in Albania is to come here. You need to come here. You need to find short-term housing in whatever city or cities you're interested in, and you need to spend a little bit of time in the city. You need to find the real estate agents, and you need to do some legwork. Again, this is going to be more work for you than it would be in many other countries. You can find an incredible deal here. You can find some incredible property, but you have to be willing to put in the work, or you're going to get taken advantage of one way or another. Lastly, don't think that throwing in some additional money to the agent or someone else is going to make your process smooth. I know someone who thought it would be wise to overpay their agent. The agent said their commission was 2%, and they said, I'll give you 4%, but I need you to take care of me after the fact for a while. The agent took the money, and then the agent started giving them an invoice every time they called for additional money because, well, they don't work for free. Use your head, slow down, be smart about your real estate purchase, and you can buy some amazing property in Albania. But don't move too fast. Don't move too fast. Don't be reckless. Do your due diligence just like you would anywhere else. You might be an expert in real estate in the United States. You may have bought 20 properties, but that doesn't mean that you know what you're doing in Albania. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. And you need to realize that. If you guys have any questions, any comments, you need help with anything, please reach out to us. We don't sell real estate. I don't intend on selling real estate. We know a few real estate agents that we have met, that we have gotten personal referrals from. We're happy to guide you to those people through our Smile Abroad Club if that's something you're interested in. But again, I can't stress enough, real estate is something that you need to take personal control of. You need to navigate the entire process yourself, and you really need to manage it. You need to own the process. Think of your real estate agent as an assistant to help get the deal done. Don't put everything on the agent. Don't rely on them to handle the process from start to finish, or you're going to have a bad time. Guys, thank you so much. As always, leave your questions in the comments. We answer every one of them. And if you're planning a move abroad, if you're ready to leave the US or wherever you come from, if you're interested in moving to Albania, please consider our Smile Abroad Club. This is an organization we put together to support people just like you. We meet every Monday. We spend a couple hours chatting on a live video meeting. We answer people's questions. We use that network of people to help each other, to go look at real estate properties in some cases. I didn't even know this was happening until I went to our meeting last week and I heard someone say, hey, I spoke to this member and they've gone to look at 3 properties for me. That's what we're here to do. We're here to help you any way we can. We would love for you to join. Please take a look at our website, smileabroad.al, and stay safe, guys. Until next time, bye-bye.